But make sure nobody's looking at what you're searching. Think of a word in the article. What was the word that you were thinking of?
Numerous?
In this video, I will reveal David Blaine's mind-reading trick with Margot Robbie. Here's a quick recap of what happened. David Blaine begins by asking Margot to think of something personal that he could never possibly know, even if he researched her. Then he tells her to search it on her phone, while making sure no one can see what she's typing.
Go anywhere that you want, but just where nobody can see what you're searching.
After she searches it, she lands on an article. Blaine then instructs her to scroll through it and think of a single random word.
Okay, scroll through. Think of a word in the article.
He then attempts to read her mind, writes the word bunny on her sister's hand, and shows it to Margot. It turns out bunny is exactly what she was originally thinking about. Next, Blaine tells her to think of a letter from the random word she saw in the article. As he watches her, he notices she changes her mind, from the letter M to R, and she confirms it. Right after that, he writes the entire word numerous on her sister's hand. Finally, he asks her to say the random word she chose, and it turns out he was correct again. So how was Blaine able to read her mind so easily? Right as the performance begins, David Blaine asks Margot Robbie if she's already thinking of something.
You're thinking of something that I could never know, even if I researched you.
Yeah.
This clearly shows something happened off-camera before filming, meaning there was pre-show work. Later, David tells her to make sure no one sees what she's searching.
But make sure nobody's looking at what you're searching.
We are missing quite a bit of context here because, first, we can't see what's on her screen. Second, David is mentioning a specific article, but we never heard David give any instructions to open up any article freely on Google. We aren't even sure if she has open Google or any specific search engine. Now, one obvious trick that we can immediately figure out is how he seemed to know she switched from the letter M to the letter R in her mind. Remember? Earlier, he asked her to think of a letter from the word she saw in the article. So when she silently spelled the word in her head, the M came first, then the R, so she wasn't actually focusing on those letters in real time. She was just going through the spelling, and it naturally lined up with what he said.
You changed.
Yeah,
You
sorry.
went from an M to an R.
So what's the trick here? Well, David Blaine actually used a special iOS app, and in fact this performance has been featured on the official website. But wait, before I explain how this app works, iRayman7 here has a quick disclaimer.
Everything shown here is based only on what's already publicly available on the app's official website. No insider material is being used, and this is purely for explanation commentary, and the explanation is based on logically drawn conclusions from my analysis.
Remember I mentioned that it was Margot's phone? Well, you can clearly see right here on the app page where it says, "You never need to touch their phone," and works with any borrowed smartphone. And if it isn't obvious from the app's name already, the article is actually opened on Wikipedia. Now, he has to somehow extract the information from their phone without touching it. This is where a quick link comes in. When the volunteer types that unique link, it connects their phone directly to the magician's private session, so everything the spectator sees on their page gets silently mirrored to Blaine in real time. Now, how does he trick the spectator into typing the link in the first place? Well, since this part happens before the cameras start rolling, we can't be sure what setup Blaine uses. But one easy and practical method starts with a simple question that sounds completely harmless. For example, Blaine could say, "Do you have any idea how many words are on Wikipedia?" Then he follows it with, "Look it up. Type this quick link into your browser. It's a word counter for Wikipedia." Once the page loads, he would say, "Let's try something on Wikipedia. Can you open it up for me real quick?" At this point, everything is set up. Now, how does the peek work? Well, the app page actually shows several ways to do it. The performer can see everything on their own phone, or they can route the peek to an Apple Watch. They can use any linked device that is tied to the same account. The app page claims that you can tell them exactly what page they're looking at, as well as what word they're merely thinking of. The way this can be done is hinted in the app's preview, which mentions fully customizable, meaning they can change how the fake Wikipedia page looks. For example, larger font size, wider spacing, fewer words per line. That makes it much easier to figure out which word she's focused on. And there's another layer that could be used here too, which is basic gaze tracking. This isn't new technology. Samsung Galaxy S4 had a feature called Smart Scroll more than a decade ago. It used the front camera to detect where your eyes were moving and scrolled automatically. It wasn't perfect, but even basic gaze direction can reveal what part of the screen someone is looking at. And today, this kind of tracking has become even more advanced. Apple Vision Pro, for example, uses precise eye tracking to control its entire interface. Combine that with a simplified page layout, using a bit of targeted guessing or cold reading, and it's enough to lock on to the word with high accuracy. There's one final step left, which is the cleanup. Remember, redirect from the app flow. Once the peek is done, the cloned page switches seamlessly to the real Wikipedia page. So even if Margot checks her browser history, everything looks normal. Behind this mask, only the truth remains till we meet again.